Hello, hello. Good morning. Do you have like any question regarding to the assignment? Multi-threading. Yes. Okay. So I'm trying to show you the structure of the assignment. Let me check. Are you talking about the like multi-thread on the server side or the client side? How to use multi-thread? It seems doesn't work. Okay, don't worry. Probably you need to have a look for the like example code. Let me try to. So if we are using the Python, go to the server example code here. You need to have a look at the bottom of it. So you need to understand how the like multi-thread work. Because I'm not sure like what kind of problem do you have. So I'm trying to like explain how this thing work. So firstly, we need to import the thread in here. You can see we need to use the library threading. So, and then how do we use this like class in here? We create our own class in here, right? So we call it client thread. And we put the thread library here, which means this class is just a child of thread. So it will inherit all the like functions inside this class. And you can see that's how we call it. It will call the thread in it. So you inherit all the functions from his thread. And then you will like just save the parameters passed from the outside. So the first one is the client address. The second one is the client socket. So you may already know what is client address. It's just an IP address plus the port number. And the client socket is the object. So we can use this socket to send a message or other stuff, right? Yeah, that's all. So basically just save the parameter in here. And then we use an indicator which call client alive to indicate if this client is alive or not. And we make it like as the true. So what does this mean? So we can use a while loop in here. While the client is alive, we just keep listening for the message from this client. So you can see this function, we call it run. So why should we call it run here? Because at the bottom, we call this method client thread.start. So if we call this method, it will go straight to here. It will just run this function. So this is because we are using the thread library. So once we call this thread.run, it will just come to here. And so we need to define this function. It's pretty straightforward because the run function in here is just simply use a while loop in here. While this connection is still alive, we just keep receiving the message from the client. Can you see that? So this one is the first important thing. We use the socket to receive the message, and then we decode it and see what is the message. If the message is login, then we can run the login function. If the download, then we run the download function. Otherwise, we just send the corresponding response to the client side. So it's pretty straightforward. So you may not like familiar with the threading stuff. So you should go to the like demonstration or tutorial online for the threading library. But the idea is pretty easy. Just have a while true loop, right? And then listening on this port. And then once we get a socket and address from the client, we just pass this parameter to our class client thread, and then we start it. So why should we like have this? Because we want to listen on the new client all the time, just like this. So once a client is connected to us, we want to have a sub-thread to handle it. So if we have multiple clients, we can handle them like at the same time. But like this one is the TCP example. So this code is TCP example. Our assignment is on the UDP one. So I suggest you do not copy the code because it may not work properly as we are using UDP right now. So if you haven't done it yet, like if you just start from beginning, I suggest you to try this method. So you have your own client and the client only have one thread at first. So don't look at the TCP thread at first. We don't care about it. And the client side, we just listening for the incoming message and handle the user input. So let's do this one first. So in the client side, I want you to achieve this function at first to handle the user input. So the client will keep asking to like to have the user input all the time. So it's just a simple while loop. And then we should be able to send the user input to the server side. So how can we do it? So we need to design the server which can listening on a like specification port like AAA. And then you should be able to print it out. Like if the server receive any kind of user input, it should be able to print it out at first. So try to achieve this function at first. And you can see there's no multi-thread at first. So there are only one main thread for both client and server side. and try to do this configuration at first and do all the like functions in the list. Let me find the specification. You can see about 70% of the mark are not require any kind of like multi-thread stuff. Just try to do the task in the table at first. So first one is the login function, and second one CRT, MSG, LST, etc. So you can see there's no requirement for the like multi-thread like at the very beginning. So don't worry about it too much. Try to do this kind of function at first without multi-thread. And once you have done it, we come to here. So mechanism to recover, it's pretty easy. You can set a timer or something. And then we come to the multi-thread here, I guess. So what should we do if we have already done this kind of function with only one client? So we just come back to here and we have another client right now. It's also the same connected to the server. So there's no need for the, how should I say? There's no need for the multi-thread in here as well. You can see if we have the second client, we call it client 2. It's exactly the same here for the client side. So there's no specification for the client side. No, so there's no need to change anything in the client side in here. But we need to change the server side, right? Because in here, the server will receive two clients message. So how can the server distinguish which client is that? Right? So we need to have a table like this. Can you see this table? You need to have something to store, like for example, the client 1 is Mandy and his IP address is this one, and client 2 is Lucy and his IP address and port number is this one. So you need to have a table or something to make the record. So center. Okay, so you are worried about the multi-threading for the client side. So at first you need to figure out why should we use the thread in the client. So do you have any idea why should we use the threading in the client side?
I feel like the thread stuff give us ability to deal with process multiple functions or informations or commands at the same time.
Yes.
So I don't think it's necessary to have a multi-thread at clients. Perhaps.
Yes, yes, you're right. So in here you can see we can have the main thread that can do all the things, including the listening, right? So we are listening for the incoming message from the server side, and then we can ask him for the user input, like LST, CRT command, something like that. You can make it as like multi-thread. That's no problem at all. For example, you can make this one is the sub thread 1, right? We can have a subthread to listening for the listening and the subthread to for like handle the input, or we can use this one as the main thread. You can also do like this, but it's unnecessarily to have this one because it's very straightforward. We can simply ask the user to have the input at first, and then we send it to the server side, and then we can wait for example, wait for 1 second, and see if we can get the incoming message from the server side, and then print it out straightforward. So we don't need to have like two thread to do these two different tasks. But yeah, if you want to like do the subthread with it, that's no problem at all.
Yeah,
But
that's fair
we
enough.
don't need it. So we should just put it in the main thread. But we do need to have like threading for the TCP connection, for the like what is that? The upload and download stuff, right? For the upload and download UDP.
Oh,
And
because what I did for my assignment is that I created a new TCP connection every time for the UDP and DWN command, and I shut it down after I finished the transmission. So every
yeah,
time I command the upload and download, it will create a new TCP connection.
yes,
Is that
exactly.
fine?
Yeah, of course. So in here, you can use the like subthread to create a upload and download task, but you can also put it here. Like for example, you are handling the user input for the upload and download command. Then you just simply create the TCP connection without threading here, right?
Indeed.
So you just simply create a new thread for the upload or download stuff, and then we close the TCP connection straightforward after we have done it. So there's no, actually, do not need to struggle on the threading stuff. Try to achieve it without any threading stuff. And of course, with the threading library, we can achieve it like in very high performance without any like waiting in the server side. Because for the server side, if you are not using the threading here, we may got stuck without the threading. So how could we got stuck in here if you are not using the threading? For example, the client one is sending a huge file right now, which may take like 1 minute to receive. So if you have only one main thread in the server side, you'll be busy for receiving the huge file, right? For busy
Yeah.
for 1 minute. So it cannot listening anymore because we are stuck in here, handle the user command, because the user is sending a upload command. So we are using the TCP connection to receiving it for 1 minute. So if the client 2 or even client 1 send the message again, we will not able to handle it right now. So that's the
Oh,
reason.
sorry to interrupt. You
Yeah.
mentioned that there could be a file that takes 1 minute. So will there be the testing case for us to have a large file? Because what I did for uploading and downloading is that I read the required file as in binary, and I send them at once. So if we're gonna have a huge file, so does that mean we need to like send them line by line?
Line by line. Are you talking about the like the file we send? We may not send the
Yeah.
txt file only. So I'm guessing you are trying to send the upload the txt file, isn't it? About
Indeed. So actually, I'm not quite familiar with all types of files.
yeah.
Is like what they exactly looking like.
Yeah. It could be a message like a kind of pictures, or just a binary file or txt file, like all kind of
all kind of
like
files. So as
yeah
long
file.
as I open them in RB mode, binary read mode,
Yeah,
that's fine.
that's fine. Yeah, you can just make
Yeah,
sure the
because you
name is the
mentioned,
same. Yeah, the extension name
yeah,
is the
okay.
same. That should be fine. Just
Because you
like what we
mentioned
did
the
in the lab. Is it lab 2 or lab 3? We have write a
lab
TCP
three,
server.
the website stuff, lab
Yes, the
three.
website stuff is just exactly the same as that one. Just
Yeah,
copy the
because I
function.
specified the receive from, sorry, not receive from. The
Yeah.
receive is 1024, so I'm a bit concerned that the
That
file
one that
size
doesn't really
would
matter,
exceed.
but you should try like send a 2 megabytes message, like 2 megabyte video or PNG file, something like that. Try to
So
send the larger file.
even it's a two megabits, I can still send them with one TCP.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, but because for the sending side, it doesn't have any like, like limitation for the sending side. But
Yeah,
for the
but there
receiving,
is.
you
Yeah.
set the buffer size as 1024, right?
Yeah.
So that means every time you receive the packet, it's like at most 1024 bytes. So you can combine two packets together. You can try how to do it, but it's not really hard. It's very easy. Just simply
Okay.
search online. It's very easy to
Yeah.
combine
Yeah.
two
Sure.
packets
Sure.
together.
I'm
But
gonna give it a try.
because you are sending the binary stuff, right? So in the
Exactly.
yeah, if a picture have, let's say 2 megabytes, so it require you to have about 2 or 3 packets to send. So you need to receive for 2 or 3 times and just simply combine them together.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and then you should be a complete file. Oh, but you may already done it, but you didn't aware of that. You can try to run it again with your
Yeah, I already
program.
finished it. Yeah,
Yeah, you
thanks
can,
to the demonstration 2 days ago.
yeah, try to send a larger file, let's say 2
Yeah,
megabytes or
I'll give it a
5
try.
megabytes, and see if it's working or not.
I still got a question for the packet loss mechanism.
Yeah.
I do have a packet loss mechanism. I work well from client to server, but when I try to use that on server, because generally, the timeout time
Yeah.
is generally, well, 1 second, 2 seconds, but sometimes the client just cannot input that quick. So if I implement the packet loss mechanism on server, I always got a timeout because the client doesn't have enough time to input.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, any suggestion on solving this?
The so I'm suppose you are using this main thread in your client. So the first one, you asking the user to have an input, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if, for example, the user puts LSD command, then
Yeah.
we just simply send the command to the server side, and then we
Exactly.
will start to wait in here.
Yeah.
Just put another step, 1.1, send the message to server side and start to wait.
Yeah. Because
And then we
everything on
set a
server is automatic. Yeah.
timer
Oh,
here.
sorry.
You see?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we just keep listening for the incoming message. So we have a timer starting here, and we can wait for 1 second, for example, from 1 second from the
Yeah.
server side. But is it any like trouble?
The client, the timer from client to server is fine because everything on server is automatic. If there's
Yeah.
no response from server, it must be timeouts. But
Yes.
because the server and client use UDP for 8 out of 10 commands, right? So I was wondering if I also need to implement that timer on server, the timeout stuff.
Yes. Yes. You can definitely do a timer in the server side as well.
Yeah.
So in here, the server is listening and then handle the user command and then reply a message to client and then set a timer.
Because this is a point where I'm kind of stuck at.
Yeah.
I set a timer, and even though I get the reply from the client, I still got a timeout error, and it just killed the progress. Somehow, I'm not quite sure why, but I just
How can I queue the connection?
because
Because it's
there's
connectionless. Like how can
I
they
mean kill the
lose
program.
queue the program?
So
Okay.
the server just shut down and stopped somehow.
So you need to print the like error message, put it in the log or something.
Yeah, it just says the timeout.
Timeout.
Yeah.
So you raise a problem here with your own program, right? Because it's timer. Or how can it get timeout?
No, it's on the server side. That's because it's like I set the timeout time to be 10 seconds for the
Yeah.
For any reply from clients, and I tried to type as fast as I can, and I made it within 10 seconds. But even if the command is received and it's is proceeded with the next command, I still got a timeout error because of the previous timeout mechanism. That's pretty tricky.
Yeah, that's a problem. What if we only need the timer for the client side? For example, we only care about the timeout in the client side. How about in here?
That's what I was considering.
So we have a timer here. So
Yeah,
once we
indeed.
didn't get any like any response from the server side, we may lose the packet, like because we like the message from the client never reached the server side, or the response from the server never reached the client side. We don't care about the reason. So only we need to know is we didn't get a response. So we just reset it
Oh
again.
yeah.
So
all responses are automatically generated because of the command from client. Yeah, that makes sense.
oh, but wait, but then we'll have another trouble. For example, we are creating the thread like 3331 thread. So
Yeah.
in the first command from the client side, the server will say, oh, you created successfully, right? Because we don't have this thread, so you can create it. But in the second time, we just send the same message again. The server side will say, you have already created, you failed to create it. So we will get two different outcomes by sending a same message, but the client side doesn't aware of that. Is it?
Indeed.
So
what if
with the two same commands, you will have two different outcomes like by running it twice. So the server will need to know, like probably you can have a log in the server side to handle this problem. The server will have check the log if he received the server received the message from the client, and you will say,
that sounds fair.
You have already executed this packet with this command before, so just simply send the result from last time.
Log.
Yeah, you can have a log to handle this problem.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's all for me so far.
Yeah, so of course you can have both timer in both sides, but which is pretty good, but we can just make it simple. Yeah.
Yeah, just make it simple. I don't want to create more bugs by fixing one bug.
Yeah, exactly. So just make everything work at first, and then you can make it perfect later.
Yeah. Well, at least I already finished the step one.
Yeah, just make sure you can like achieve the requirement on the table at first. So you will get most of the marks. Thank you.
Yeah. Any suggestion on the potential mistakes or the program errors could it be for testing?
Yes,
so generally
they may
what
have
I
like
have
one frequently problem is, so the UDP server and TCP UDP client should be like this. Sorry, I bring it to the front. So the last step, close, may have the problem. For example, your program may crash while we are testing your program. So it may crash and it doesn't close properly. And we will restart your program to test another function again. So if it doesn't close properly, you may not be able to run it in the same port number.
Yeah.
So you can try to crash your program at first, and then see if you can run the server at the same port.
Unfortunately, no. So
Yeah,
it's
it
like
was a-
I was keeping changing the port
yes,
number.
it is. So because you didn't close it properly, you should try to add the close function, close socket function.
It's
No
like
matter your
the
programs.
for the UDP.
Yes, no matter UDP and TCP. If you are like crashing your program or just using the Control C to close it, it will not run this function. So the port number will still in use by your program in the server. So
Yeah.
is it?
Yeah.
So it will say
indeed,
the
it happens.
address is already in use error.
Yeah. I just frequently got that error.
Yeah,
every time.
Try to use this function to handle the problem. Use the close. So we save us time to debug.
Like I'll try if I can Google it.
Yeah, it's very easy. Just close it. Just run the function before you like close.
Like but it requires my program to detect the key interrupt and run the close function.
Yeah, it's like let me try to find the example code.
Already finished it. Stuff. UDP, TCP.
There's a library called ATEXIT. You may be able to use it. It's the built-in function for the exit function. You can simply search on that. It's very easy to use. So it will give you the ability to run the function every time you exit this program.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Just a few lines, so like 3 or 4 lines should be enough.
Okay, sure. Demo training. May I ask how many test cases will our program be tested on for each command?
Like probably two or three.
So it's like one correct and one incorrect stuff.
Not necessarily. We were always testing like the details, like in the specification. For example, the CRT. The CRT. Let me explain how we test CRT. But it's not necessary to be like the same, but we should test like that. So firstly, we will try the CRT, just a normal thread title, right?
Yeah.
And we could test in the second case, like with the same command. So you should be able to show the proper error message because we already have the same thread title. So we are not able to create it, right?
Indeed.
So we are trying to test here. If the thread does not exist, then we create a new file. We will check if you have new file. And otherwise, we create the same thread title. You should not be able to create because we already have it. And then we may test like with some like corner case like that. We can create a thread with 2 words, which is not allowed to do it.
Sorry, by 2 words you mean like we have something called create with 2 words afterwards.
Yeah, for example, the CRT thread space title. So
yeah.
So it's a invalid command. Your client should be able to detect that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think I got that.
How about the case sensitive? We have some like capital thread title. We can create this one at first, and then we have the like thread title in like a small
lowercase.
Yeah, lowercase.
Oh.
Yeah. So how about that? You should be able to create it because it's case sensitive.
What about wait. I thought for the create command we're only allowed to input numbers as thread title.
Oh, really?
I'm not quite sure because
why?
According to the examples on page whatever afterwards, yeah.
You can see there's no limitation. The thread titles are 1 word long, not necessarily to be only the digit.
So it's like as long as it's 1 word long, it doesn't really matter if we say like 9331 or COMP3331.
Yeah,
both are fine.
Yeah.
But these 2 are different.
Yeah.
All right, I'll modify it.
And of course, you should go to the bottom of the table, part 8. So once you've done it, make sure you have the exactly the same output in here. So we just find the CRT command here. CRT3331. You should show this on the server side, and this one on the client side.
Yeah, it's like a log or something like user A issued blah 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 command and yes.
Yeah. So basically, we will test your program like this. So this kind of situation like must be tested in here.
Yeah,
and we may have some extra test on this command, like according to the details of it. for example, we like case sensitive stuff, but don't worry too much. Just make sure you can done something like this. You will get most of the marks.
But create must be capitalized, right? CRT must be in upper.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like if I input CRT in lowercase, it'll return errors. It's like invalid command, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're not sure about like this kind of specification problem, you can simply post it on the forum.
Yeah, because this is a bit misunderstanding because like all the thread name are in digital.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I asked like they necessary to be digital. Yeah, I'll change it. That's easy.
Yeah, not a big problem.
Where's my create? Always on the client. It's like the only requirement for the CRT is just the length.
Length.
Yeah, I think so.
Only one word.
Yeah. What is this?
Yeah, just check.
Oh, I even counted it. So a four digit number.
Yeah.
Because of the misunderstanding. Yes, fine. I just delay those. That's easy. So is it case sensitive by default?
Yeah.
I'll check.
Yeah, if you didn't handle it, like if you didn't manipulate the SCR, you don't need to worry about it.
I
It's
would
already
say
the case
A
sensitive.
equals to capital CRT, B equals to.
Yeah, I guess you are just using the OS to create a file or SOIS. To detect if we already have the file.
Oh, I didn't use that. I use a try open. I use a try open.
Yeah, yeah, you can do that. You can use the try open. It's this, yeah. And
get it? No, it's not the same. Yes, case sensitive by default, so I don't need to worry about it. Yeah, if possible, could you please just help me double check all the constraints I made for the format check? Let's see. Yeah, for the create, read, and remove for these three commands, it's just the length has to be 2. So one is a command, the second is the content. Right.
Yeah, so for every function, you need to go to the specification. So you have the message, you just go to here, make sure you follow all the rules in here. So know that the message may contain white space. So the message, so try to run this kind of command.
Just want to double check. So
yeah,
is there a requirement for situations like client A logging as user 1, but
yeah,
at the meantime or afterwards, client B wants to log in as the same
user,
as the same user? Yeah.
Yes. So usually we will not allow that to happen. We may test it. So we can go to the authentication part. Let me see, where's the authentication specification?
page 4.
Yeah. So password case sensitive. Usually we will test it like two clients log into the like same user.
Well, that's
You can find it. Like, is there any details here? It's logging or not? Try this. Do no hardcode. Okay, so it's in here. When your assignment is tested with multiple concurrent clients, the server should also check that a new client that is authenticating with the server does not attempt to log in with a username that is already being used by another active client. So you may need to maintain a table that have the records of the active user, active client.
yeah, okay.
Right. So
well, I
it
do
does
have
say
it.
that. So this case will
Oh,
be
I didn't use
highly.
a table. I use a dictionary.
Yeah,
Whereas
that's
the
fine.
key is the
No problem.
address of the user, of the
No
client.
problem at all. So you need to make sure there are only one active client for each user. So if you are trying to log in with another client with the same username, you should not be able to log in.
So sir, one stupid question. How do we check the username if it's a value in the dictionary? Because I'm not that familiar with dictionary, but like for table, for list, we just simply say if username is in the list.
Yeah, okay.
But for dictionary, how do we
Okay, so let me just run Windows. Yeah. Okay.
how to check?
Okay, just come to here. So what is your dictionary looks like? Let's just a simple. So your dictionary is like
the key is the address and the
address?
value is the string of username.
Okay.
So it's like
this.
the
And the username load up. And we have another one. Simply copy this one. And let's just change the port number. And this one is, let's see. Okay, so this is our dictionary. So your problem is how to check the
value is in the
value.
yeah.
Okay, so the dot values, you will get a list. So if we can check Lucy in the dot values,
sorry.
we will say it's true, and of course we can try another one, and in false.
Yeah, so where's my login? Yeah, it's just not good for a starter to have such a bad programming habit. Where's my login program? Login info. Let's see, sign up. So what's the expect time to tell the second user that this account is already logged in?
So what is the what is the time?
Well, what is the time? Like so I split the login into three components. So the first
Uh-huh.
component is like I ask them to input the username, and I check the username whether it's in the registered user or not. If it's registered, then I tell the client to input the password. If it's
Okay.
not, I said, well, it's a sign up. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So you may, so you're asking if we should print the message on like we have already input the
before I
username
ask
or
them
password.
yeah,
Yeah. I think that's okay. It doesn't really matter.
that's fine. That doesn't matter, right? Okay.
Yeah, you can see the specification only says that we will not allow two clients using the same username, but it doesn't say when should print the message out.
Log.
That's not.
Plenty of logs. So I also need to clean up all the logs when
They log out.
yeah when it's log out when it's interrupted.
Yeah.
That'd be a bit time consuming. Yeah, that's fine. Can handle that.
You can check the message from the client, just like what we did in the TCP one. You can see if you can get this message. If the received message is equal to this one, then we will see the message from the server is empty. Something like that. So before you log out, the client log out, you can send the message like this.
Yeah, I do have that logout message. So
Yes.
I think that's fine.
Or you can like this, if message in the server side, this one is in the server side, if message from the user, from the client is empty, and we will say that the user is disconnected. So we can delete the value from the dictionary. So you should use the message to detect if the user is logged out or not.
I should change the client as well. Incorrect passwords. Say incorrect password. That's yeah. I need to think of that log issue. to deal with the timeout events. All good, but anyway, thanks for the demo.
You're welcome. Hello. Hello. Yes. Do you have any question?
Yes, I have a question. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused. I'm currently looking at a thread right now. But
That's it.
let me ask you my question that I came here for. So my question is, when we are trying to use both TCP and UDP from
Mm.
the client side to the server side, um,
Sorry,
my
it's not pretty clear your voice.
okay, is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay, great. So my question is, when we are connecting from the client side to the server side, and the client can use both TCP and UDP. Now, the issue that I'm facing is, let's say I sent a TCP message from the client end.
Yeah.
Now, on the server end, I can have both both TCP and UDP sockets are listening in a while loop. But the problem that I'm facing is, if I have got the UDP socket before TCP socket, what will happen is the UDP socket will keep listening and it won't let the TCP socket
Okay.
to intercept the message. How do I overcome that?
Yeah, so you have the problem of like printing and listening in two different sockets. I'm not sure like why you have like TCP and UDP at the same time all the time, but that's not the main problem. The main problem is if you want to run the TCP and UDP at the same time, so you need to create a subthread to do it.
Okay.
So for example, in here, can you see the screen?
Yes, I can see the screen now.
So in here, in the main thread of the server, so this one is the server. So in the main thread, I'm listening on the UDP port number 888. So in the main thread, it's like just listening on the UDP and handle the incoming user command. And then I have an extra subthread, which is the TCP one. So if we establish a TCP with the client, for example, this one, the client one, we just create a subthread to connect with the client one. So you will not like you will have no conflict with the UDP one because this one is running in the subthread. So they can receive and send message at the same time.
Okay.
And yeah. And this one can once we have another client, we can also build the same stuff like this. So we have two subthreads. This one is subthread 1 for client 1. This one is subthread 2 for client 2. And the middle side is UDP.
So UDP will work for, I guess, all the clients, and like there's no multi-threading for UDP. The multi-threading is only for the TCP connections. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So because we don't need UDP, we actually it's not UDP cannot do the multi-thread. It can do the multi-thread, but it's unnecessary to do that because the UDP is connectionless, which means we don't need to maintain this kind of connection like this, because this one, for every TCP connection, we have a socket object that can use to connect to with each other. But in the UDP, we don't have that kind of stuff. We only have the port number and the IP address. So, but that's enough to send a message. So we don't need to create a subthread like the TCP.
Okay, got it. Yeah, because I was a little confused. The reason being, as per the specifications, like the first part could be done without multi-threading, and in the first part, there was an option of like both TCP and UDP. So I was thinking that that could be implemented without multi-threading.
Yes, actually, you can implement all the stuff without any like multi-threading stuff. Like for
Okay.
example, you just focus on the middle side, the client and server in the middle side. You can see with the UDP, we can achieve most of the function. But
Yes.
why do we have a TCP connection here? It's only for the upload and download.
Yes.
So just ignore this one at first. Try to do this like the UDP connection. So you don't need to have any kind of TCP stuff and the subthread at first.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Okay.
do all the stuff with UDP. And then once you get to here, like the TCP with upload and download, I would say it's not necessarily to have the subthread in here. You can just put it in the main thread. So what happened in here? So what if we need to upload and download the file? We just simply create the TCP connection in the main thread, like after the step 2. And we close it immediately once we finish the upload and download action. So that we don't maintain the TCP connection. We only create a TCP connection once we need it, and then we close it immediately after we like done the action. So there's no need for the multi-thread.
But the question is, in the main thread in the server, how will, because the main thread is always listening on UDP socket,
Yes.
and if the client sends a TCP packet, how will it know that, hey, this is actually a TCP, this is a TCP connection request, not a UDP?
Yes. So how can we connect with the TCP first? Actually, we cannot send the TCP packet directly. We need to have the handshake stuff at first. Let me switch to the PowerPoint here. So the TCP need to have the like 3-way handshake at first, which is the where's the code? Let me find the code in here. So this one. Okay, how can TCP connect it with each other? The TCP will listen, right, in the code, and then will accept. So that's the handshake stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, so if we want to connect with each other, we need to run this one at first, and then we can create a thread, but which is unnecessary in our assignment here. We can just simply run this 2 line, and once we have the socket and address, we can just use it to communicate. So
Okay.
in here, the question is like you are not sure how to distinguish how TCP and like UDP packet. Is this UDP or TCP? But actually, you don't need to worry about that. All the incoming message is UDP.
Yes.
And once we need to send the upload, like we want to upload and download stuff, then we establish a TCP command later, like a TCP connection later. So we have the TCP connection with the client 2 right now, and the client 2 will use this connection, send the file immediately, and then once we receive it, we close the connection.
Okay.
So, so the server will firstly know we are going to send them or have a upload or download command at first, right? Because we listen in here, and then we handle the user command, which is the, for example, upload. Then in here, we create a TCP connection. So we are not listening on UDP right now because we are on the step 2. We are handle the user command. So in the step 2, we just create a TCP connection with the client 2. And then we will not listen on the UDP port for this time, and until we have done the TCP connection.
Okay.
So your program will stuck in here. For example, you are sending a very huge file. It may take 1 hour to send, and the server will stuck for 1 hour. Right? Because you are creating this TCP connection, and sending a huge file for 1 hour, and it cannot be able to listen on the port. So that's the reason why we have the subthread here. So if you have the subthread, we can just simply create a connection and send the file, and we can still listening on the UDP. Yeah.
Understand. Okay. All right. So yeah, that was my confusion actually. I thought that the message that we will send for the file upload and download, that will be a TCP message, but that is clearly not the case. We should be sending a UDP message for file upload or download.
Yes. Yeah.
And based on that message, we will have a condition that will spin up a TCP setup after that. Okay. Interesting. All right. Okay, no, thanks for clarifying that. I do have one other question as well. I'm a little bit curious because someone asked a question on the forums. She said that she wants to modify a little bit in terms of the messaging, and Salil said that like keep the things like exactly the same or something like that. Or let me take a step back. So for example, CRT, create thread. Now, someone said that, not someone said, let me look at the specifications. The specification says the first line of the file should contain the username who created the thread. And each subsequent line should be a message added in the chronological order in which it's been posted, and then so on and so forth. So the thing is, I have changed this a little bit. I've added one more piece of information. I know there is someone else on this conversation, but I don't think it's going to be considered plagiarism. So what I've done is I've added how many number of threads are there in the in my file in the CRT. So I've got, let's say, a file called 3331.txt. Then the file is created by, let's say, by me. It will have created by Ankur, that's being mentioned. And then I have total messages so far equals to 5, something like that. And then I've got message number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then in the given format. So I'm curious if I'm making these little bit of tweaks here and there, is that going to be an issue? Because there is a specific way of how the things have been mentioned, but then like, how much freedom do I have in changing the structure of the file?
Structure of file. I'm not quite sure. Like,
okay. So what I mean to say is this. Let's say, okay, so let's go at the CRT CRT requirement. So it should have a format of CRT and thread title. That's fine. That the title of the new thread should be included as an argument. Okay, that's fine. The thread titles are 1 word long and case sensitive. Fine. The client should send the CRT, the title of the thread and username to the server. Fine. Each server is represented as a text file in the current working directory with the same file name. Okay, that's fine. The first line of the file should contain the username who created the thread. Interesting. So this is now this is an implementation decision, I guess, how I would like to implement the username the file. I can have an index file altogether that have all the usernames and all the meta information about the file.
Of course, you can have it.
Okay, so that like this is not a requirement per se, I would assume. This is a suggestion. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so this one, I'm not sure. We'll check if you do have the format like this. So like in the first line of the file should contain the username. You can just like you say, you just save it in the dictionary or just in the program in the RAM, right? You can have a index stuff over there. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, just follow the rules for in here. Like if, for example, you don't even need it because you have already managed on your on the other way, like in the dictionary, in the index stuff. But yeah, we just follow the rules in here.
So as long as we satisfy the requirements, it doesn't really matter what methodology we use, right?
Yes, just I think it's just only the requirement for the like how can you save the stuff. You can like have the other method to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's what I did.
So when you save the like thread stuff, the thread file, you just follow the rules.
Okay, and then the following line says the first line should contain this. Each subsequent line should be a message added in a chronological sequence in which they were posted. Now, let's say between these two lines, I've also added information about current number of messages equal to 5,
Yeah.
for example. Is that considered wrong or is that okay?
I didn't see any problem with that, because you can say that it's 5 message. I think it's totally okay. Is there any problem?
Okay, or should I double check with Salil just to make sure that he's okay with it?
Yes, if you are not sure about it, just post the message on the forum. So you will have the evidence, but I don't think it's a problem. Yeah, but just make sure, just post it on the forum. So once you like lose your mark, you can say, you answer this in the forum while I lose my mark.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I think that answers most of my questions. Yeah, I do have one more question. By the way, there is Yingbo. Yingbo, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I don't want to hijack this whole session for myself.
You're gonna ask more questions? Do you want me to leave or you just?
No. All I'm saying is, if you have any questions, feel free to ask questions, because I do want to ask one more question, but I don't want to, hijack this room and just keep asking questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask as well.
Oh, sorry, you are free to ask. I'm just here to see if there are any other questions could inspire me for the debugging stuff.
Okay, all right, sweet. So the other question is how to implement a retransmission mechanism. So I've been thinking about different possibilities, like I'm trying to come up with a minimal retransmission protocol that I can probably use.
Yes.
So
which
there were a few different things I've been looking at. I started with a more like a TCP style approach where I was having serial numbers on both the sides, and then I was trying to cut down on them and trying to simplify it. But what I'm really curious about is when we are talking about retransmissions, what is the expectations? And a couple of things obviously will pop up when I'm saying retransmission. Let me take a really simple example.
Yes.
Let's say the client sends a packet to the server, and server, let's say, authenticates the user. Let's say it's the authentication packet, and server says, yep, authenticated, awesome. And server prints the message, say user authenticated, and then it sends that message back to the user as well. Now, on the way back, the packet gets lost on the way. And then user will say, oh, well, I didn't receive the response from the server. User doesn't know that server has actually processed the packet and server has printed something at its end. So what will client do is client will resend the packet to the server, right?
Yes.
Now server will look at it and say, oh, well, there's a packet. Now server can do a couple of things here. Server can act completely dumb and say, oh, well, there's a packet, let me process it, and it will reprint user authenticated on its screen. Or it might be a little bit smarter and say, oh, well, I know this packet, it came like, it's the last packet that came after processing.
Yes.
So do we need to do that duplicate detection at the server end?
Yes, if it's possible, please do duplicate version, like both in client and server side, because that will be like smarter and perform better. But yeah, so in here you can see I set the timer here only in the client side. So I have a timer in the client side. So once we send the message from the client to the server, I will start to run the timer to count. For example, we will count for 200 milliseconds and see if we can get a response from the server. And if the server does not reply us, which means our message could lost in the way to the server or could lost in the way from the server to the client. So, but we don't know, right?
Yes.
So, but we don't care about that. We just resend the message, right? Because it's timeout. We just simply resend it and run the timer again. So until we get a response, but that's the problem. So what if our message have already reached the server side, but the server just like cannot reach us in the way back? So it will execute it, the command again. So what if it's a CRT command? We will not be able to create this thread twice.
Yes.
So you will have two different outputs. Like for the first time, you will say, success created. And the second time you will say, you cannot create it because you have already created. So you need to maintain a kind of log in the server side.
Okay.
And saying that, and you need to like use a if command to see if this one is the like previous command sent by this client. And or you can use the sequence number, something like that. You can use an ID. For example, the client sent the message with the message ID. The client will just define the ID in the client side. Let's say 1000. So this message is 1000 and sent to the server, and server will take a note of, and the server will say, I received the ID of 1000 message from the client. So next time the client just send the message, the same message, it will say, they have the same ID. So the server will notice that, the client sent the message to me again. So which means the client didn't receive the stuff. So I can resend the like previous result back to the client. So there are lots of ways to achieve it. Just have a look of the like how TCP works. So we just use the UDP to mimic.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
No, sorry. Carry on, please. Yep. I've said yep. Okay. I'll do that.
Yeah, it's just like something about RDT stuff. Just go back to the slides and mimic the RDT protocol.
Sure thing. Okay. Yeah. Like that's something I was scratching my head around. Like, what is it that is a genuine retransmission and what is it that is not a genuine retransmission? So let's say if I put a if condition, hey, if the previous message equals to the current message, but then there is this always a legitimate possibility that the same message, exactly the same message is sent twice. For example, LST, list files.
Yeah.
You can send them back to back, but they are two messages where, well, probably the answer will be same in that case anyway. So you can still send the same answer back.
Yes. So what we want to do is just do the RDT stuff. So we just go to the slides and check how RDT works. I'm not sure how will we check, like how will we check this kind of stuff with the program, because it's barely lost the packet in the local host. I'm not sure how will we check, but I think mostly we just want you to understand what is RDT and you should try to do it by yourself. That's more about concept, more about the explanation on the report. Yeah, just in my point of view, just show your understanding. Of course, you need to do the code, but just show your understanding on the report is the most important thing. Like, how did you do with the like retransmit?
Okay, right, I will do that. And the other question is, you did mention about the assignment with marks. So we will be able to see our marks and everything, and feedback from people who are marking it. Is that correct to say?
Yeah, I think they will have a feedback at the end, like before the final exam. I reckon, yeah, before the final exam, we may release the feedback of the assignment.
All right, so we always have a possibility of feedback. And, yep, okay, that's good to know. All right, I guess I've got enough information. Can I get a copy of this diagram that you have at your end? Or is it posted somewhere on web CMS or somewhere.
So it's not clear again.
So the diagram that you are sharing with us, like, where
Oh,
can I
this
download?
one. Yeah, of course. I just copied this one to the GitHub link. Uh, let me open the GitHub. Yeah. Okay. It's in here. Let me copy the link to the chat. Okay.
I didn't know that the code was on GitHub actually.
Yeah,
Right.
it's on the chat.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that answers my questions. Thank you. Thanks for your help.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.